when Marc Lamont Hill came by the Remix Morning Show last week to talk about this new podcast that he's launched based on a previous book he did with Mumia called The Classroom and the Cell, it's just another one of the offerings in this media universe that I wanted to take, to enjoy, take advantage of. So I made a note and checked out the most recent episodes, 2 parts, of course, because they're 13-minute calls that are interrupted by the prison, of course, and
which is, I think, I don't know if I would assume everybody have some type of nostalgia or comfort, but that hearing that is almost, well, it's just like talking to any family members you got locked in. It's kind of like I don't know. I can't even explain the feeling in terms of how the conversation feel, and then also to hear Mumia's like livelihood. It sounds like he's still young.
It is
young.
crazy. I mean, I keep expecting him to start, and every once in a while over the years, he'll be in a little bit of a, I don't know. He'll sound what you would expect to be the sound of someone in his condition and his age. But this most recent one, he sounded strong again and very healthy. And the chat is already on every word. I mean,
I can see. I literally said I can't describe the word, and no, comfort is definitely not the word. But yeah, sure, Ricky and Leah. But yeah.
But I mean, I think that it's not comfort with his being incarcerated, but it is a comforting analysis, and and it was a little, I admit, comforting to hear him sound stronger than he had, but yeah, I don't make a mistake.
I don't know if it's nostalgia or familiarity or whatever it is, but like it definitely is it makes me feel like. So I have like several family members. One of my uncles who just came home from Cali, but I still have several family members that's normally when the conversation comes, that things interrupts us, and then we kind of pause and keep going. But I'm talking about that particular thing that's not comforting, but definitely familiar.
Yeah, just
but we can
upbeat is more from Why Not Learn is what. So I'm gonna pick it up. I just want to play. There's 2 sections that I wanted to play. They're not long, and I encourage people obviously to check out the entire piece. But the first part I wanted to play is Mumia's response to this question from Marc about the relationship between Black people and the Palestinian struggle, which I really thought was on point. And then a little bit from the next clip that responds to something that may be a nice prelude to what we're getting into the rest of the show. But let's just pick it up here. I think I have
Saddam Hussein, the same lies about Al Qaeda, the same lies about these alleged weapons of mass destruction and uranium enrichment and all the stuff that was proven to just be a flat out falsehood, and they will go to the grave peddling these lies. I wanted to ask you a question though, because I was, you go back to the old days. You were old head. So when you're thinking about the 60s and the 70s, how much was Palestine on the radar of black radicals, of people like you who knew everything from the Panthers to MOVE to just the Philly activist streets? Like how much was Palestine on the radar?
It was there, and it was there. If you think back, that's when you saw the emergence of the PLO, right? And they were a presence, and the PLO had a very interesting relationship with the Black Panther Party. Thanks to Eldridge. Eldridge made contacts, there were relationships, and, some working together. And then if you recall, not from your life, but from your studies, the United Nations came out with a declaration that Zionism is racism. And the party ran it in their paper. And it caused a scandal. But, if you read the writings of the Zionists, they're actually racist in reverse in this sense. I'm trying to think of the name of the guy who wrote the definitive book on there, and his name is escaping me. But he
So
said something to the effect like he wanted Israelis to be, blonde and blue-eyed and that kind of. And it's like crazy when you think about it. Because,
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Where is that coming from? And it shows you that in Jewish consciousness, based on their experience in Europe generally and in Germany specifically, they had developed this intense kind of self-hatred, right? And they were trying to reflect an Aryanized vision of like an Aryan Jew. It's crazy.
It's the complexities of race and.
So I just wanted to play that one for that part, and we could welcome Diallo to the show. Good morning, brother. Hope you feeling relatively well.
Good morning.
But yeah, so I just wanted to play that little clip just as a sort of a reminder that from Eldridge Cleaver's work back in the day to the broader work of the Panthers to the broader work of the Black radical tradition and liberation movement, there has always been an understanding and an affinity for the struggle of other colonized people, in particular the Palestinians, and with this heavy critique of Zionism as part of the imperial project. So I just, because I felt like it keeps coming up in our various circles, in some of the commentaries, some of it, I saw somebody last week said something about that we never, and I saw a comment that passingly that, we don't ever talk about Africa. Some kind of stuff is like, why they always talk about Palestinians. It's like, so just let an OG still being punished for that OG-ness in terms of Mumia, remind everybody what it really is here.
And his young boy joke is pretty timely. Like he said, from your studies, not your experience. Young buck. Yeah. So then there was learn better young boy jokes, by the way.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, real. Oh, yeah. All right. Then the other, just sort of clip from the part 2 of this, I thought was also very barish from the very bar producing Mumia in this question of sort of extending from the same point, but this question of why do we need to be here, Black people particularly, concerned about other people elsewhere?
What do you say to people who say, look, I'm a Negro in America, I got enough to worry about. I'm a white worker in America, I got enough to worry about with, labor and, outsourcing the jobs and exploitation, etc. I can't worry about elsewhere until I take care of home first. What do you say to those people?
Well, here's the problem with that analysis. You never really take care of home. And
yeah, listen, that's called my boy. You know nothing about that.
Care of home. And people talk about taking care of home. But when you look at something like that, and you cannot, it's like a car accident, you cannot turn away, then what happens in Palestine, right? What happens in Gaza? What happens in the West Bank? What happens in the Sudan? What happens abroad enters...
This is a call from Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution, Mahanoy. This call is subject to recording and monitoring.
There are no borders in consciousness. So, when we talk about home, what we're really trying to do is deflect from the pain and the shock that we see because, it terrifies us, right? It
Absolutely.
Discomforts us. But Alexis de Tocqueville said, of all things, Americans love their comfort. Well, this is uncomfortable. And it's meant to be. Because, war is uncomfortable.
So there are no borders in consciousness. And Diallo, just so you're aware, every motion you make, writing, everything, the mic picks it up. And that's why I just muted you very quickly. It's just FYI. But Yeah, there are no borders in consciousness was just another.
Now listen.
I mean, so I just wanted just those two clips. I encourage, obviously, everybody should be checking out Prison Radio and Marc's discussions with Mumia and whatever else. But as he also
You
said,
just don't read, beloved.
you know, so
Do you think, well, in terms of the you can't take care of home, and I think people, especially in the US, always talk about, like, whether it's financial security or some type of security, feeling safe or these things, and you would have to do, you only could do those things if you totally ignore what's going on and the likelihood that things could be changed for you extremely fast. Like, do you think that kind of speaks to people's or our false sense of security, or that we could, we could be secure in some type of fashion while under imperialism or genocide?
I mean, I do. I mean, I think what Mumia was saying there said it all. That we don't ever really take care of home.
Mhm.
So this claim that we hear from certain, particularly conservative, from my point of view, conservative nationalists and others, is I'm not interested in Palestine and all these other non-black people and whatever else and this, that, and the third, or even other black people in other parts of the world. And we got to take care of our own. Well, but that never really happens. You don't actually ever really do that, and then it becomes more of the cottage industry of securing one's place, position, platform, maybe relative bag, in terms of saying I don't. Let's focus on ourselves. As if to get free ourselves, there shouldn't be any focus on what's happening elsewhere in the world and recognizing connections from the tentacles of imperial oppression. But so that I mean, and then it to the extent that I follow Mumia's point there, I mean, it is discomforting to think about war in general. That's part of my argument, around why so much of the propaganda around black capitalism is effective, because part of it is none of us want to go to war. I don't want to think of conflict beyond what would be much more easy to do than say I want to focus on my immediate neighborhood and circulate money and business with my immediate community and not have to look down the road too far. I get all of that, and yeah, I mean, if even consciously or not, often we all think, if I can just make it to the end of the day and get back to my chair, get back to my sofa, get back to my bed, get back to my television, get back to my game tonight, get back to the comforts, the relative creature comforts, then I'll just do that, and then we can put our head down and not really confront and engage struggle, and just sort of and then when people say, but Jared, look up what's happening in Palestine, no, I'm just focused on my thing. I want to get my our thing together. So yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
I commend Mumia's faith in Americans, but I have to disagree with him on the point where he said deflect from the pain. That people don't want to deal with things abroad because they want to deflect from the pain. I think there's a genuine indifference, there or a genuine celebration or admiration. I mean, I think I'm sorry, a little brain fog this morning, but I think there's a celebration of warfare. What's his name? The guy that wrote War is a Force That Gives Us Meaning. There's a fervor for warfare. There is a Americans have been taught that the other is the enemy. Foreigners. I mean, Trump just got on stage and said that foreigners are poisoning the blood. So Chris Hedges, thank you, David. Chris Hedges, he said that the vast majority of people here see the world as a hostile, the world outside of America as inferior, as hostile. So Americans do have very solid views on foreign people, foreign nations, and foreign issues and conflict. It is just very pathological, xenophobic, and American-centric. So I would understand and I would have sympathy if I thought most Americans neglected or ignored overseas issues. But I think that many Americans, far too many Americans, have an imperial mindset. There was this book called The Imperial Middle that researched, written years ago, how many rank and file Americans who didn't benefit from overseas adventures and conflicts, who didn't really derive any type of didn't have any real economic stake in U.S. imperialist agenda, but most Americans fully embrace the imperial ideology, as America is a beacon or a light at the top of the hill to guide all other nations. And you'll find Americans say, just everyday Black Americans too would say, we need to stop sending all our money over there. We sending all our money to Ukraine. So I think Americans have views and opinions and concerns about overseas. They're just pathological and warped.
So again, I see this. You're muted, Geechee. But go ahead.
I'm saying, would you include that in the so last, what is that, Veterans Day? I saw quite a few people that supposedly have pro-black, black nationalists. I don't even call them left-leaning, that they will be like, happy Veterans Day, or they'll post their picture like everybody else of when they was in the military or whatever. Do you think like that's indicative of what you're saying in terms of people's very conscious of the benefits of them participating in U.S. imperialism, even if they can't name it U.S. imperialism, but the mere fact that they will celebrate their being a veteran would be indicative of what you're saying?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, if people were really trying to address home, I don't care how localized an issue is, the quality of schools, then you look at the overinvestment in the military and imperialist adventures. If you're looking into police atrocities and police harassment of Black communities, and you see that they're being trained overseas, and using technology developed in Gaza and the West Bank, many of the police officers were fast-tracked from the U.S. military. If you want to look at health and wellness, if you look at the pollutants and toxins in our environment, that again is a global issue. Not only does consciousness not have borders, pollution doesn't have borders, nuclear fallout doesn't have borders, and most importantly, finance doesn't have borders. Glenn Ford spoke a lot about how, as they were making it harder and harder for humans to travel across the globe, they made it easier and easier for money to travel across the globe. So now they can collapse economies without sending in assassins or militaries. They can collapse economies by simply extracting an enormous amount of fiat from their economy. So anyone that sincerely, like ADOS, and I looked up the definition of ADOS, which is hysterical. I played ADOS on a Words with Friends, like this online Scrabble game I play. And when I looked up the definition, but anyway, anybody that's honestly trying to solve the problems of home is going to inevitably lead you around the globe, because you live in the belly of the beast, in the seat of empire. And the people who are able to localize or pretend that their problems both originate locally and can be solved locally, then more likely than not, they're not trying to solve the problems at home. They're just trying to con the people in their own community.
Yeah. So again, this is sort of a part of a running theme with us, where but I think that where. So I end up seeing the what Diallo you're talking about and what Mumia is talking about in terms of this deflection of the pain, all being born from the same propagandistic origins that have been conditioning people in this country to accept the warfare, to accept the distancing from seeing the connections to other oppressed communities, from seeing the way that various segments of American societies benefit American society benefits from this country's imperial efforts. There is, again, the entire field of mass communication research has its origins in convincing predominantly young white men to go to World War I. So there has been a long form effort in producing this. So that's why there's I don't think there's anything natural. There's nothing inherent or innate in being born in this country that makes people end up this way. I think it's a conditioning that has been honed and well resourced and funded for a long time. So that's why I think I think it's very important that we hear from people like Mumia reminding us that there is a long tradition of an analysis that contradicts all of this, and movements that contradict all of that, all of which is being suppressed, and why so many of us still do get caught up in it. But
right, but that's why I said it's a pathogenic society. It literally drives you insane. If you do nothing more than become a status quo cog in this system, you can't be fully human. It has to be a conscious and deliberate resistance to falling into the American mindset or the American mentality. Even to call that American when there's two continents called Americans, but Americans in the United States think they are the exclusive sole Americans. It's a pathogenic society. So I would like to, like I said, I wish that had been my observation, that people in the U.S. were empathetic enough that it was just too painful to engage with what the U.S. is doing across the globe, which is why they ignore it. Because I think you could work with that. But I think the average U.S. citizen thinks that that the United States is the solution, and that overseas people are exploiting America, and overseas people are a threat to America, and overseas people are invading America, and overseas people are burdening America. So they're not turning away from the pain and sympathy that they feel for people overseas. They generally have hostile or dismissive attitudes. So they don't feel pain about what.
Oh, that wasn't how I heard
Haiti's
Mumia. Maybe I got to go back and hear it. I didn't hear Mumia saying they're turning away from the pain of what others are suffering. I heard them saying they're turning away the pain of their own experience by denying it being the result of these same imperial processes. But I might have misheard that. My bias might have kicked in on that.